the first really normal week relative to the practices. Thought we've had real good preparation. Good work today, schedule-wise, and we'll fly out tomorrow. Any questions?
So you talked in the camp about Benet being a good pass protector. I guess how do you see sort of like his role as that?
Yeah, he's a guy that can do a number of things well. We think he can run well. He's good in the pickups. He's good in the passing game, and so you know exactly what you're getting. And sometimes this week is a significant week in the protections because of the amount of pressure looks we get. There was quite a bit of time spent on third down, not just third, even second down. They will, give you some exotic looks that you really have to be ready for. So, and he was someone coming on last year, even as a runner. So I think that there's always a value when you know exactly what you're getting from a player, and then you can implement him into those things that he does well.
You talked this summer about Benito, a little bit of a pitch count, 60% here, which was down from the Buffalo game. Is that a less is more theory?
Well, I think the first guy that look, there's an attrition to doing what those guys in the front do. I mean, I never wrestled, but when I did wrestle, I always felt like I was beat or exhausted, and so those guys are wrestling for 6 seconds of play or 5 seconds of play, and Zach Allen's another one. We just got to be mindful of these guys dressing, and I think to answer your question, yes. If you're too many, then at the end you look at it and say, man, maybe the effectiveness wasn't the same as the game wore on. So a lot of it depends on, there are games where, defensively, usually when the game ends, one side of the ball or the other has 10 to 20 more plays. And so it depends how the game's going. We had more plays, obviously, last week than they did. So a lot of it can be dependent on that, too.
John Ellis help you that way, too?
Yeah, he gives us, we're playing those guys, when they're in. And then we just figure out the rotation.
Sean, when you see a couple of injuries like the Colts have at quarterback, does that change?
Well, there's one corner that's a starter, and then the other who also plays but is significant in their special teams. We pay attention to all of that. And so sometimes you want to see in the first series, if a player is down for any team, us or the opponent, in those early series, you're kind of seeing, all right, who's taking over the role and where is he going to be at? And it's no different for us as well.
I think you're starting to stretch here where you play 4 or 5 on the road. I know you focus on Sunday, but is there what goes into just sort of navigating a stretch where you've got a lot of time, away from you?
Say that again.
You got a quarter of the next 5 games are on the road. Just what goes into navigating a stretch where?
I didn't even realize that. I know we're on the road this week, and then I know we're at LA, and then we're at home, right?
Yeah, Monday night and then.
I never think 4 or 5 though. I mean, I just know this: we have more home games than away games, and we're going to London, which is kind of like a neutral game. But I probably could never, I really couldn't tell you who's up after Cincinnati, and that's fine, and I don't want to know.
Sean, back-to-back on the road, though, is there anything to that?
I think it's our league.
Yeah,
I think it's our league. This game's at 4:05. We get in there. We're going to just stay on Mountain Time and play a 2:05 game. You can only do that when it's the later game. So, all the watches, clocks in the rooms, we'll be on Mountain Time the whole time we're there, and then play the game at 2:05. rather than and I did this mistakenly at Cincinnati, 4:30. We flipped the clocks, and bed check is 9:30 our time, and then breakfast began at 4 a.m. But that wasn't real smart. So this is one of those travel east. It's not far enough where you're going 2 days in advance, but you are on the Eastern time zone. So for us, this itinerary, tomorrow and Sunday will just be like last week's. It'll be identical, 2:05 start.
Sean, I know last year you kept saying you couldn't really you never figured out how to use 3 running backs. And I know we'll see what happens with Harvey, but
I think the moral of the story always is that I've had a lot of experience feeding 2, and that that's where the focus is. It's hard to feed 3.
Do they use more movement in their pressure looks than some?
Yeah, they give you a lot. It was a late night the other night on 3rd down, and then you get something in your game that you didn't see on tape until maybe 8 weeks back, and that's pretty typical for 3rd down. But he's not afraid to play 0 in critical moments. That catch that Mims makes in Cincinnati to tie the game, was a critical situation, and they didn't play 0, but I was expecting it with the call, and then we just made a great play. But nonetheless, they'll give you, their number one, their nickel's a real good player, real smart, and so you start with the nickel dogs and him coming, and then the safety will pressure from the boundary. They're fielding boundary with the safeties, and then you get into some of the all up bailouts, all up they come, so handling that and having a good plan for that, and the number one thing, and this is every week, but so last week Indianapolis on offense averaged 8.2 yards on 1st down. So, I want to play quarterback 2nd and 2. You know what I mean? Because now you talk about advantage. Your headset as a play caller, everyone's got a call for you. With 3rd and 11, it's quiet, crickets. So, being able to stay on schedule really can reduce maybe some of those looks that you wouldn't play on 3rd and 4. Now 2nd and 10, you're beginning to see this in our league. Teams are treating that a little bit like 3rd and long and not afraid to give some pressure looks. So down in distance this week more so is real important in regards to play call.
They had a sack, I believe, where every guy left their rush line, was somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, we watched them all, and
he just seems more willing to move everybody out.
If you get an all-up look, if this makes sense, and you gap the protection to the right, all right, the ones that are getting blocked step and pop out, and the ones that aren't run. And then if I turn it that way, and you step, you pop out, and these guys, in other words, they know you're one short, and they try to get some underneath control. So if the protection slides to you, you rush, and then you become a problem on slants or something inside. If the slide goes away from you, you're rushing. There's a free rusher, and if you get into a 7-man, they can bring 8, and so then how do you deal with that? So we feel like it took a while, but we feel like we have a good plan.
Coach, over the past year, a year ago from now, Justin Schnott hadn't played a defensive snap in a couple of years now. He's got a ton of experience. Do you see that on film, especially this past week?
Certainly you do. I mean, obviously when I arrived, the vision for him. And we always talk about that. These roles are never etched in stone. This is the role this week. Embrace it. And his was, third LB, special teams. And then very quickly it morphed into, starting LB. So I think, how can you possibly not benefit from the amount of snaps he had last year, the pluses, the minuses, and then you're more experienced at it.
How's Drake progressing?
Yeah, all good. We'll list everything on the injury report like we always do.
Sean, I think even before the calf, how did you feel about kind of Evan Ingram's, utilization, usage, kind of the game?
Yeah, I think
started?
we always look at our touches, in when you put plays in, there's a primary, like there's some ways where you can get him a touch or you think you can. And so I can't off the top of my tip, but I mean, he's going to be one of those matchups that we want to take advantage of.